This show is called Off the Cuff. The format of the show is that I take questions submitted by viewers at discord.gg/self-improvement and I answer them live on stream. I'm a coach. I specialize in social matters, some dating stuff, and a little bit of productivity. I'm joined by my friend and co-host Anton Toya. Say hello. And I'm just going to jump right into it. We have some questions in the forum. So someone says, I came across the idea of reading a mantra out every morning, reaffirming my values and my goals and what I can and can't do verbally. I want to make one of those because I think it should help me to keep from distracting myself. I need to desperately increase my focus. I've been distracted, in parentheses, running away for too long. I know this well. Lamau. Okay, so you're struggling with procrastination. You think that a mantra can help you. I wrote a post about this recently. I think it just came out in the behavioral forum, and that's free. It's called, yeah, there you go, using affirmations to program your mind. And I talked last week on the show about the change your mind, change your life post, and that sort of cycle of the things that you think affect your actions, which affect your results, which then feeds back into your perception, the way that you think about things. And I talked in that specifically about changing the way that you think, and how that can change everything you do. And in the next post, the affirmations one is about how to add like a deliberate form of self-talk into your behavior to change your identity, which will then change the way you behave. So if you're struggling with procrastination, like a lot of it is habit as well, but your identity plays a massive role in the way that you behave and the things that you do. So if you're someone that struggles with getting shit done or doing the things that you want to do, you say here reaffirming your values and your goals, you distract yourself, you need to increase your focus. But if you're someone that it's sort of like both feed back into each other. You distract yourself, you procrastinate, and so that feeds back into your identity, which then feeds back into your belief system and the things that you do. Like if you're someone that doesn't believe that you're a very disciplined person, first of all, it's far easier to come up with excuses to not do the things that you want to do, but it informs your behavior in a very subtle way. So like you're less likely to believe that you can change and all of this stuff. So you've hinted on something very good with having a mantra here, and I would refer to it as an affirmation, but a mantra is basically the same thing. It's something you repeat to yourself over and over. And in the affirmations post, which again, free, discord.gg/self-improvement in the behavioral forum, there's different ways to use affirmations, and affirmations are basically just a form of self-talk. So you're constantly talking to yourself and affirming things to yourself all day, every day. And some of these things are positive and some of these things are negative. And if it's positive, then great, you don't really need to change it. But if it's negative, it can cause a whole host of problems as you're finding, and it feeds into your sense of identity. So one of the ways that you can change it is first to decide who you want to be. So in your case, I think you want to be more disciplined, more motivated, and to be doing more with your life. So decide who you want to be and how you want to act, and then come up with I am statements that back that up. And it's good to use I am statements because they're affirmative. Like it's a doing thing rather than anything else. It's like if you say I am, it's present tense, and it's very it's like a powerful way to talk to your subconscious, because it's like a here and now I am this, rather than I want to be this, no, I'll do this in future. So don't make it future and make it affirmative. I am. So if it's I am disciplined, I am motivated, whatever, you can repeat these things to yourself. Like, I don't know, say you spend an hour every morning, you have 10 mantras or affirmations that you want to keep, and so you specifically said in the morning, and you just repeat them to yourself. Another good way to do it is to write them down. And I do this before, like in the morning's good if it's like the first thing you do after you wake up. I do it right before bed after doing my journaling. And I have like 5 to 10 statements that I will write down as I'm going to sleep, because your brain's going into a sort of subconscious state for several hours when you're going to sleep. So it's a good time to do it. And ways to boost repeating something to yourself over and over again will change the way that you think, but it takes a long time. And there are ways to reinforce the strength of this process and to make it happen, not necessarily really quickly, but faster. So for example, if I tell you that you're in danger, you might be like, yeah, okay, sure, there's danger all around, whatever. If I put a gun to your head and say that I'm going to shoot you, you're going to feel far more that you're in danger. Like it's a very intense form of reinforcement. And you can do this with emotions and with visualization. So the stronger the better you can visualize yourself in the state that you want to be. So if you're saying I am disciplined, I am motivated, the better that you can visualize yourself in that state, the stronger the specifically emotional reinforcement of that is, the more it'll implant itself into your subconscious and eventually become part of your thinking. And it does help to back these things up with action as well, but we can talk about that another time. Like the action component is very important. You can tell yourself you're motivated all day if you're sitting watching TikToks. Like it's never going to ingrain. You're never going to fully believe it. And so with visualization, it's a little bit of a misleading term because you think like visualization, but it's really imagination. And again, that conjures like image, but with visualization, imagination, you want to include as many of the senses as you possibly can. So if you're going, I am disciplined, what does that mean? What are you doing? What are you working on? What does it feel like? What action are you taking? If you can, like what smells are around you? You know, like put yourself in a scenario whilst you're doing this affirmation, whilst you're doing this mantra that aligns with that scenario and makes you feel as if you're there as part. And specifically as well, what emotions come up with that? Is it a sense of pride? Is it a sense of joy? Is it a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction with yourself and all of these things? So you're being disciplined, whatever, and try and have strong emotional and imaginatory reinforcement for this mantra as you're repeating it. Because if you can visualize yourself in that state, your subconscious will start to align with that. Like you're creating a new identity for yourself. You're creating a new image of yourself that you will start to be pulled towards the more that you do this. Because that's what really sets it in your subconscious, is the level of intensity and reinforcement. And that's if you're doing it. So there's two ways to sort of plant ideas in the subconscious, and that's one of them, is through intense emotional reinforcement. The other way is to do it subliminally. And so I talked in one of the posts, I think it was that Change Your Mind, Change Your Life one, about how advertisement works on a covert level. So advertisement's really good at giving a message, like Coca-Cola, bright colors and all this stuff, and it'll be like, drink Coke, it's really great. And it communicates to you on two levels. And one is the conscious level, in which it's just telling you Coca-Cola is great, and you're like, I'll drink Coca-Cola. But advertisement works best when you're not paying attention to it. And it uses colors and symbols and all these things that your subconscious understands, that when your conscious mind is disengaged, it just goes straight into the back of it. So you're not really paying attention when adverts are on, and that's when they work best. And you should be careful to like guard your subconscious and stay away from things that are bad influence on it. Like if you're walking around, you're like, why do I want McDonald's today? And it might be because you saw a McDonald's advert and that logo imprinted itself, and advertisers understand this. So it's good to guard the gates of your subconscious as well, but you can use this to your advantage by doing things like either turning your mantras into symbols, like things that you, and there are different ways to do this. You can look up like how to make sigils and stuff online if you want, but the method that I prefer is just to write statements. So if you're like, I am disciplined, I am motivated, I am happy, whatever, like pick 2 or 3 of these, put them on sticky notes, and then place them around your where you are, in places where you will see them, but it's sort of in your peripheral. So for me, it would be like next to my computer monitor, or on my fridge, or like next to the bathroom mirror or whatever. And for the first week or so, you're going to notice them, and it's like it sort of takes away from the effect because you're looking at them, even though it will be a positive reminder. But after a while, your subconscious will start to, like, they just become a part of the environment. So you'll start to filter them out, and that's when they start to go into your subconscious easier. Another way you can do it is by repeating things, and this is a bit more complicated, but you can find some like 10-hour meditation music loop, or some instrumental music that you like that's like an hour long or whatever, and then record 4 or 5 mantras or affirmations or whatever word you want to use, and then layer that into the music at a level where you can hear it, but it's quiet enough beneath the music that it's easy to not pay attention to it. And then as you're doing your dishes or cleaning your room or whatever, you can be listening to that for about an hour a day. So yeah, mantras, affirmations, whatever you want, are great. They do genuinely work. I use them. I know a lot of people that use them. It seems like a stupid thing. Oh, if I just repeat something to myself for long enough, I'll believe it. But you genuinely will. And as I've said in a couple of these posts, and again, I'm better at writing than I am at talking. So if you want to read these, it's discord.gg/self-improvement. It's in the behavioral forum. Where was I? Yeah, if you want to repeat something to yourself long enough, you will eventually believe it. You do need to reinforce it with action as well, but everything starts as a mental process. And whilst there is such a thing as like objective truth in the world, you could, when it comes to beliefs about who you are and your place in the world and how you relate to things and your perspective on events, it's entirely within your control. And whatever you plant in there, you will believe. And so if you want to take control of that process, affirmations, mantras are one way that you can help to do it. And another thing I will say is that like this whole fake it till you make it thing, it's kind of the same thing. You just keep affirming and behaving as if you are the person that you want to be. It does work to an extent, but specifically with affirmations, if you're saying things to yourself that create resistance. So say for example, you've lived your whole life as someone who's quote unquote lazy or undisciplined, unmotivated, whatever, and then you're trying to tell yourself like, I am highly disciplined, I'm motivated, I'm successful. You might find that there's some form of mental resistance which is telling you that you're not that thing, and so your subconscious is going, no, you're not, right? And if you're finding that's the case, it can actually work against you, because every time you repeat that thing, your mind's fighting against it. And so if you're finding that you're creating resistance with your statements, you can do what's called creating a bridging statement. So for example, if your statement is I am disciplined, if that creates resistance, you can instead go, I am becoming more disciplined, because that creates less resistance. And if even that causes problems, you can just say, I am capable of change, right? And once you believe that, you move up to, I am becoming more disciplined, and then you move to, I am disciplined. And actually, one of the first things that I did when getting into self-improvement, because when I was younger, the reason I got into self-improvement is because I was struggling with depression. And the thing that I wanted more than anything was to be happy. And my first exploration to self-improvement was like, how do I be happy? What does happiness mean? I was reading books about happiness, and I got a little bit into like Buddhism and stuff like that. But one of the first things I said to myself when I realized I could take some control over my life, and I realized that my thoughts were within my control, I developed a sense of meta-awareness, which is like taking a step back from your own conscious process and observing it, and realizing that you can observe rather than identifying with everything that goes through your head. One of the first things that I did was I told myself, every day from this point forward, I'm going to get a little happier. And every day I get a little happier. I changed it into like an affirmative. So I made the promise, every day from this point forward, I'm going to get happier. And then I had this mantra of every day I get a little happier. Every day I feel a little better. And then I would take actions to back that up. So I would find myself feeling miserable, and I'm going to go, no, I'm in control of my head. Every day I feel a little bit better, and I would get a little bit better. And then at the end of the day, I'd reflect on that, and over time, that was the process of change. But that mantra, that affirmation helped me. So these things genuinely do work. So I hope that answers the question. Because I know this is someone in the forums that we've had extensive talks about, like the mind and how that works and reshaping your identity and all these things. But if you haven't already, do go and read those posts. They're in the behavioral forum, and they're called Change Your Mind, Change Your Life, and Using Affirmations to Program Your Mind. So I hope that's helpful. Anton, you got anything to add to that? Hmm. Hmm. Oh yeah, I told you to write affirmations, didn't I? Hmm. And so hold on for a second. I know you repeated those for a while, but you're saying this now as if you've gone back to that booklet and kind of forgot about it after a while. I know you repeated them for a bit, but did you stop doing that at some point? And even though you stopped doing it, you found that initial process, because you're saying now you're beginning to align with those things, even though you've stopped repeating them, right? Right. So even that couple of weeks or a month or whatever of repeating those things still ingrained it enough that over like the 6 month period or whatever, however long it's been, since we stayed in Sofia for a week, has still had some sort of effect on you, which is interesting. Hmm. Mhm. Oh shit. Someone says, "Hey Ben, what's up? Good to see you doing these videos. Also, is Anton in the voice chat with you right now? I can't hear him." Oh, that's not good. Oh, for fuck's sakes. I've had you muted, buddy. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Do we want to do? Thank you, person in the voice chat for person in the YouTube chat for telling me that shit. Yeah, I recorded something during the week where I didn't want to have my desktop audio recording. I hope you were audible on the last one. I think you were. That's not good either
You've
way.
just been chatting to a ghost then.
Yeah. I've been talking to nobody, and then oh shit. Okay, all right. Do we want to go back and talk about what we just talked? Like, do you want to repeat the important thing there, or do you think they got it from me, like reaffirming what you were saying?
Well, all I said was that I in the boot camp I did the affirmation exercise. And the more I see now, when I look back, because I have the book with me right now, and as he was giving your speech, I was reading back my statements that I wrote down, and I see myself becoming this person. I'm very, very close. And it was interesting to see, because I only did it for like 3 weeks, the reading the affirmations. But then what changed for me was the way I actively started thinking about my affirmations instead of just reading them every day.
Yeah, I mean, you have to affirm it. Like everything behavioral starts, like everything, not even everything behavioral. I think everything is like I would expand this to all of reality and say that it's all a mental construct to some extent. But everything starts in the mind. All ideas come from the mind. All everything comes from like potential and thoughts, and then is manifested into reality through exertion of will. And with your behavior specifically, it's like everything you do is informed by who you think you are. And you can change who you think you are by changing the actions, but the thinking, it's like a chicken and an egg thing. It is cyclical, but the thought comes first, the egg comes first in this scenario. So yeah, as I laid forward in that post, and as we've talked about last week, it's like the things that you think and your sense of identity and all of the mental process affect your thoughts and your feelings and all of this stuff, which affects how you act. Because if you believe you are something, you're going to act in accordance with that. Like the difference between the homeless beggar and the super successful guy, yes, circumstances as well, but in terms of their behavior and what gets them to where they are and what separates them is entirely in their own head. It's what they think and feel about themselves, which affects how they act, which then affects the results that they get, which then feeds back into how they think and feel about themselves in the world. And it's a big cycle that you can affect any part of. Yeah. I think I was going to go somewhere else with that, but I forgot. Yeah, on you go.
You also touched on the fact of like the promotion from big companies like McDonald's and stuff. And even one of my friends here, we talked about the subject, and he said, for this reason, I'm listening to Japanese and Chinese music because I can't understand the music, and it can't influence my mind, he said. It was very interesting to hear
it
this.
Maybe can. I don't know that it can't. I mean, that's getting into like spiritual territory where like the things have power regardless of whether or not you understand them. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's interesting though. But yeah, so many things. And we can get a little bit conspiratorial here, but so many things work on a subconscious level where it's like advertising and messaging and programming. Like, you know, again, getting conspiratorial. There's a reason it's called television programming and channels and stuff like that. And that, you know, we call words spelling words, but, you know, all of these things have power to some extent, and it's all used to affect the way that you think. And I think that if you are not affecting your thoughts and you're not affecting the way that you think and the things that you believe, then someone else is. And they're using that for their benefit, whether it be Coca-Cola and Pepsi or it be governments or it be whatever. Like if you're not in control of your mind, someone else is. And the people that run the biggest companies and the biggest corporations, the biggest governments, I believe they understand this. And it's in people's best interest to understand it themselves. Not just from like a psychic defense kind of thing, but in terms of having control over your own life. Like it's all within your control, and it all starts as a mental process. So focus on that, and everything else will change as a result. I mean, obviously take actions as well. Yeah, and you can directly target actions to change the mental process as well. And I think we've talked about this before. It's like on the boot camp specifically, it's like we go out, we take intense action, we get results which change our beliefs, and then the negative beliefs which you think like you have a negative expectation about what that action will do. The action brings a positive result, and so the negative belief can't exist anymore. So you can start with the action, but it's best to target both. And everything begins in the mind, even though you can affect it with the action. It's a cycle. And again, that post lays it out better: how to change your mind, how to change your life, or change your mind, change your life. All right, next question. Hi, Ben. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask you this question and for providing advice on it. You're very welcome. I'm seeking advice for someone who struggles with an intense need to please others due to deep-seated insecurity. This person often fabricates stories to impress people, exaggerating accomplishments like being wealthy or achieving unlikely feats. They also engage in reckless behavior, such as performing embarrassing dares in public to gain approval. Despite these efforts, they have no genuine friendships and feel deeply lonely. Given this situation, how can someone like this break free from their obsession with people-pleasing? What steps can they take to build genuine self-confidence and establish authentic connections without resorting to fabrications or reckless behavior? Right. I mean, there's different kinds. So I used to be one of these people that would just lie and make shit up to try and impress people and make them like me, or to garner pity, or for whatever, to gauge some sort of favorable emotional reaction from people that would make me feel better about myself. When I was much younger, like 12, 13, 14, because I started in we have primary and secondary school in the UK, and primary is up till 12, and then secondary is like 12 to 18. But in primary school, I was bullied a lot, and I didn't really have any friends. I had an adversarial relationship with everybody in the school, pretty much. And so when I changed school and I went to secondary school, high school, for a few years, I was trying to like reinvent myself, and I didn't feel like I had anything really going on in my life, and so I'd make shit up to try and impress people. And so I understand exactly where this person is coming from, and I can sort of understand why people do it. So there's that kind of person that's like, it comes from insecurity. And you say here it comes from insecurity. The other kinds of people that do this are liars and manipulators who are well aware of what they're doing, and they'll try and people that have like like they're compulsive liars. And those are people that you need to be really careful of, because usually they're very charismatic. But yeah, ignoring that and going to the actual root of your question, people that have insecurities. Let me just read it again. Fabricate stories to impress people, exaggerating accomplishments like being wealthier. Yeah, I mean, it's as you say, it's insecurity. You want people to like you, or you want to gain some kind of reaction from people, whether it be pity, or whether it be like pride, or like them thinking highly of you, or it works both ways. You can either do this to get people to think higher of you, or you can get it so that they'll take pity on you, because you want people to feel sorry for you in some way, because it's all forms of attention, and some people view pity as positive attention, and everybody's come across people like that. But it all comes from the same place. It's a lack of it's one of two. It's a combination of like insecurity, as you say it, so they don't feel good enough, and also not having things that they feel they can actually connect with people on. And so they're looking for emotion. That's really what it is. They're looking for emotional investment from people, whether it be positive or negative emotional investment, because that's how we feel connected to people. And we've talked about this on previous live streams. Connection comes from emotional understanding and shared emotional experience and emotional connection. So if you're looking for emotional investment from people, again, be it positive or negative, and you don't have anything that you feel about yourself that you can put forward to get that, like you don't feel like you're interesting, you don't feel like you're worthy of their attention and respect, you'll feel inclined to make shit up. And that's what I did. Me and my dad went hot air balloon riding in the summer. I remember telling that one in school when I was like 11, and nobody fucking believed me. I was like, oh, we did this impressive thing. So it comes from that. It comes from looking for emotional investment from people. And despite these efforts, you say they have no genuine friendships and feel deeply lonely. And yeah, that is what happens. Like unless you're incredibly charismatic and people believe your lies, and if you're consistent with them, which is also very difficult. Even if people believe you at first, they're very quickly going to cotton on that you're just making shit up. And that combined with what we've talked about in the past about authenticity and how if you're not acting in a way that's congruent with your internal state, people are going to subconsciously pick up on that, because people are very astute when it comes to social matters. At least most people are. And so if you're saying and doing things that aren't aligned with what you're thinking and feeling internally, it creates a sense of dissonance, which comes across as creepy or weird to other people. And so it's very difficult to make, at least not long-term friendships, by being in this way manipulative. And I use the term manipulative because it is manipulation, whether it's deliberate or not. Like whether you are that sort of like narcissistic, and I've come across these people like narcissistic compulsive liar type that's doing this to try and impress people, or whether it's like genuine insecurity and fucked upness, let's say. It has the same effect either way. You might make short-term connections with people, but they don't last long-term, because people eventually find out and they start avoiding you. So given the situation, you say, how can someone like this break free from their obsession with people pleasing? I wouldn't necessarily say it's people pleasing. People pleasing is more like trying to do things for everybody and take care of everybody and things like that, or conforming your personality to fit in with other people's expectations and stuff. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's people pleasing, but what steps can it take to build genuine self-confidence and establish authentic connections? All the same stuff we talked about in the past. So strip away all of the layers of bullshit, first of all, and realize that by behaving in these ways is not going to, like, try and change your behavior to realize that doing these things doesn't work. And doing them will only result in people not, people sensing that dissonance, and people thinking you're creepy, people thinking you're weird, etc. So realizing that it's not going to work is usually the first step. Otherwise, people just continue to try. After that, go into the Discord server, go into the social section and read through those. So the main things that hold people back socially is fear. And it's the ego coming up with excuses and telling them they can't be a certain thing or can't do a certain thing. It's fear and being stuck in the status quo. So your mind wants you to keep doing exactly what you've always been doing your entire life, because if you stray outside of that, it's an unknown, and your mind will start to come up with excuses as to why you can't do it. And this is usually fear, but it can also just be apathy and things like that. And so in social situations specifically, it's like, if I talk to this person, if I do this and it goes wrong, I'm going to become a social pariah. People are not going to like me. I'm going to get cast out. And that's a very deep-seated thing. It can be simpler than that as well. It can be like, well, I don't want to go to the gym today. And so you come up with the excuse of like, oh, I'll go tomorrow, or my clothes aren't as clean, like I don't have the right gym clothes, or I don't have this, or I don't have that, or like I want to start on this project but I need everything to be perfect first. Like all forms of procrastination, a lot of it comes down to habit and not really wanting to change. But social things specifically, it's usually rooted in fear, and so the way that you get over that is to challenge that fear. And again, going back to the thoughts, behaviors, action cycle, what we do on boot camps is we take people and make them do deliberately very embarrassing things in public. Because then they realize, first of all, nobody actually gives a shit about you, and we live in such a wide and diverse society that it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you're not attacking people or like violating anybody's rights or personal space or anything like this. People are usually either not going to care or they're going to seek entertainment from you. And so you're usually having a positive effect even when you're embarrassing yourself. And so we take people out and they do all sorts of embarrassing things in public, called them social freedom exercises, and then go and talk to people and try and connect with people and have conversations and get dates and all those things. What people realize at the end of it is that all of their assumptions about what would happen if they went and did these things were completely wrong. Like, no one swore at them, no one cussed them out. Like, even the rejections were healthy and people were very friendly toward them, and everything went well, right? And so that completely dismantles the negative fear that they had about what might happen. They think, I can't talk to that person because this will happen. And then they go and talk to the person's very friendly and everything's great. And even if the conversation's kind of stilted, it's still positive. And so it dismantles the negative fear. So the first thing you need to do is start doing things like this and dismantle the fear. Then, as you're being social and you're going out and talking to people and all these things, not only will you meet people and gain experiences and sort of get better just at socializing, because, skill in something comes from exposure. So you go out and you socialize a bunch, and you get better at being social with people, get better at emotional connections and all of this stuff. Also do what we talked about last week, which is go out and just try things. Like, go to social clubs, go to events, pick up an instrument, do some travel, like find things in your life that make you interesting to other people. Find things that you can be passionate about and give yourself a good story that's a true story, so that you don't feel the need to make up things to impress people. Because really, think about it this way. If you had things in your life that you felt you could share with other people, that you were proud of or happy about or whatever, that you felt were interesting enough to share with other people, you wouldn't feel the need to make up lies. So to get over this and to change it, it's a combination of stripping down the belief that makes you feel like you need to do this and working on your insecurities. And we could talk about that in another time. Or again, I'm writing some stuff in the emotional forum at the moment about like self-worth and things like this. And I believe we've talked about it on previous live streams. So strip all that down and realize that you don't need to lie to people and you don't need to make shit up in order to get people to like you. Overcome your social fears and start going out and practicing being social with people. And then do things in your life that make you feel like you are an interesting person. Like, give yourself a good story, so that when you're in these social interactions with people, you have things to talk about and you have things to tell them about yourself without feeling the need to make shit up. And I think that covers it. Someone says in the chat, "Hey man, do you have a speech coach? You're really good at talking." No, I don't have a speech coach. I'm good at rambling, is what I'm good at doing. I'm very good at. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily the most concise person, and I'm not the best at yeah, I think I'm very good at communicating in terms of getting what I'm trying to say across. I'm not great at doing it in the most concise manner. And I say like and and all these things a lot. So no, I don't have a speech coach. But I feel like it's fairly pertinent because it is part of like the social aspect of things. Like I have a mind that if doctors would say I have ADHD. It runs at a million miles an hour. I'm thinking three different things at once. I used to, when I was a lot younger, really struggle with communication. And I'd get really frustrated and I'd start crying when I was trying to tell people things because my mind was going faster than my words could keep up with. And especially when I was in an intense emotional situation, I was trying to communicate my emotions. I found that tremendously difficult and I get really frustrated. And so I used to be really, really bad at this, but over time, it came with time and practice. And I think we've talked about this on a previous stream, but I'll go over it again. Two things that I think really help with getting better at communicating specifically. Maybe not better at speech, because I've never really thought about that, but getting better at communicating are understanding yourself better and taking the time to really evaluate your own emotions and the things that you think and feel. Like I spend a lot of my time just reflecting on things and thinking about things, and I keep a journal at the end of the day, and so I know how I think and feel about everything. And when it comes to the things that we're talking about here, pretty much everything that I talk about with some sense of authority on the stream are things that I am deeply experienced with. Like I have years of experience with this stuff, so I know what I'm talking about, and I've usually had conversations with people about them in the past. So a lot of what I'm doing here is retelling information that I've already created a framework for in my head, if that makes sense. So I think like good communication comes from understanding yourself and what you're talking about, and then also being able to relate that to other people as well. So if you understand yourself, you understand everything that's going on inside, and you understand other people very well. Communication is just bridging that gap and finding the words to fill in. This is how I think and feel, and this is how this is, and this is how you are. And the more that you do it, the more that you practice that, the more that it just flows after a while. So I wouldn't necessarily say I'm good at speech. I'm very good at rambling about things and going on at great length about stuff that I'm knowledgeable about, and that just comes from practice. Yeah. All right, next question. As a practicing Muslim, I strive to adhere to Islamic guidelines in social interactions, such as avoiding handshakes with women and not participating in would you just give them like a fist bump or something? It's a bad joke. And not participating in non-Islamic celebrations like birthday, Halloween, and Christmas. For instance, instead of saying happy birthday, I prefer to say congrats on being X years old. How can I navigate these social situations gracefully and confidently while staying true to my beliefs? And how can I communicate my stance without causing discomfort or awkwardness for others? Okay. I think there's two separate things here. And one of them is the attitude towards women, and then the other one is the attitude towards holidays and events and things like that. And the latter is far easier to dismiss than the former, because some people are going to be genuinely insulted. If a woman goes to shake your hand and you refuse to do it on religious grounds, there are going to be people that are offended by that, and it's just their right to feel that way, to be honest with you. It's also your right to adhere to your religious practices and not do that. Like I'm a libertarian. As long as you're not harming other people, I don't give a fuck what you think or believe or do, right? I'm not coming from like a moral grandstanding position here. I'm just saying that people will get offended at you sometimes for doing that. And it's up to you whether you care or not. Like, I don't know what your beliefs about women are, or if this is just a religious thing. I would say that if you have certain beliefs about women's place in society and whatever, like, I'm a fairly traditional person. I believe in traditional gender roles and traditional relationship roles and all this stuff. I also believe that people are free to do and think and feel whatever the fuck they want, to be whoever they want to be. And I'm not about enforcing any of that stuff on people. And I would say that if you have a specific mentality about other people that it comes from like a religious background that causes you to think in a negative way about, for example, women or whatever, then that's maybe something that you should evaluate. But when it comes to shaking hands or whatever, I'm not sure where that comes from and if it's not a lack of respect. But if it's not a lack of respect and it's, I don't understand Islam. If it's not a lack of respect and it's something else, then you should be able to easily excuse it and just go, it's a religious thing and it's for this reason. And if people still get insulted or confused by that, that's up to them. So that's the one side. That's the women's side. I don't really know how you should handle that. I'm not a Muslim. It's a religious thing. I can't really take a position because I don't understand it well enough. With the other thing, like birthdays, Halloween, Christmas, I don't really care about my birthday. I just use it as an excuse for a party. Again, Halloween is basically just an excuse for a party. And Christmas, my family doesn't celebrate Christmas. We celebrate the winter solstice, which is a more pagan tradition. It's what Christmas is actually based on. It's the shortest night of the year. And so for the past decade or whatever, I've already not been celebrating Christmas. And I have never had a bad experience telling somebody that I don't celebrate Christmas. They just go, what are you doing for Christmas? And I go, well, we're doing this for solstice. And it's usually just like getting the family together. So whatever holidays you do have, it should be very easy to dismiss it and just say, oh yeah, no, I'm a Muslim, so we do this instead. Like, I'm not even a pagan or whatever. We just, it's the salt. We're celebrating it literally being the shortest night of the year. It's like, yay, winter's ending, you know? And so we get together as a family and have a nice meal, and that's all that it is. So yeah, when it comes to the holiday stuff, I don't think it matters. I think you're just creating something in your, like, have people actually responded to you negatively for saying these things? And if they have, or is it because of your religion? Like, maybe that's the problem to them more than it is the lack of celebration of the holidays. I don't think that should matter at all. And all of this basically comes down, like you're saying, how can I communicate my stance without causing discomfort or awkwardness for others? If you don't feel that what you're doing is wrong, right? And you just say, well, this is what I do. That's the end of it. If other people want to feel uncomfortable or awkward, that's not your responsibility. Doesn't fucking matter at the end of the day. If you're not harming anybody, if you're not violating anybody's rights, if you're not doing it, if you're not taking something from somebody that they're not willing to give, you're doing nothing wrong. And like, you're welcome to practice whatever you want. You're welcome to think whatever you want. If you don't want to celebrate birthdays and Christmas and Halloween, that's your fucking business and nobody else's. So all you really need to say is, oh no, I don't celebrate that. I'm a Muslim. And if they ask about it and they're curious, you can tell them. And if not, if they're like, oh, well, that's weird or whatever, fuck them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I would suggest that if you feel like it does matter, find people around you that don't care. Like, I've never had an experience where I tell somebody that I don't celebrate Christmas or Halloween or anything. Like, I don't care about any of these things. I've never told somebody that and had them go, oh, that's really weird. Why don't you do that? You're a bad person. So I don't think it matters. And if you are finding people like that, I would suggest they're taking issue with it for other reasons. Like maybe some like intense Christian person, but I'd assume you have your differences with those people anyway. So yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything to add to that, Anton? I think it's a fairly simple. It's a matter of perspective at the end of the day.
Yeah, and just use a good pre-frame. Like, hey, if you think it's going to hurt that people in that way, just say it up front. Like, hey, it's not for this or this reason. It just
that's true as well. You could pre-frame it. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like just saying this is my religious practice is enough. Like, people should respect that to an extent.
Yeah.
As long as you're not infringing on other people's rights or freedoms, I don't think it matters. Nothing matters.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, and you can also say, like, at the end, like, hey, if you want me to go deeper into this stuff, I can explain to you why.
Yeah. People might take an interest.
Up to the person. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I thought I answered that one already. Did I just delete the wrong question? I don't think I did. Anyway, someone says in the chat, that's a huge cup. Yeah, it's. I mean, so I'm British. I grew up drinking tea. This is non-caffeinated tea, but I drink maybe like 10 or 11 cups of this a day, and I think it's 400 milliliters. Because I don't see the point. If you're gonna have a cup of tea, why not have a big cup of tea? You know, like, people have these little thimble-sized cups that they use in it. It's just not. I like a satisfying big drink. I don't know. Is that weird? I'm well hydrated. But I had one of these cups. I had this exact mug, or something that resembled this exact mug. And it's, I don't know. Maybe this is an interesting story. Maybe it isn't. But I'm going to tell it anyway. I had one of these mugs that one of my parents bought it when I was 10 or 11 or whatever, and I drank out of it every day for years and years, and became like my cup. And I'm not a very sentimental person. I don't really have many things I have sentiment towards, but this mug is one of them. And I traveled with it. Like, when I was 17, 18, 19, and I was hitchhiking around Europe, I was literally guitar, backpack with some clothes in it, and that mug hanging off of it. And I used that mug everywhere I went. I loved that mug. And when I was working for the previous company, like, I took it everywhere with me, and it was in Bulgaria with me a couple of years ago. This is a different mug. It's exactly the same kind, but that original mug, I'm going to tell you what happened to it. About 2 years ago, maybe 3, when I was working for the previous company, and I was doing coaching calls like this, but like private in the groups. There was this guy, and we were talking about attachment and getting really attached to things and how it hurts. Like, I think he was saying, like, he watched a show with his girlfriend, and the show was like, they broke up, and now he doesn't want to watch the show anymore, even though he loved the show, because it reminds him of her, and he doesn't like the feeling of not being able to indulge in something that he was attached to. And we were talking about, like, loss and attachment and all of that stuff. And I took the mug and I smashed it on the desk. I told him the whole story about how I'd had this mug for like 8 or 9 years, and I loved it and all of this stuff, and it was my favorite mug, and I drank out of every day, and I'd feel really hurt if I lost it. And then I smashed it off of the desk. And he's like, man, what the fuck? Why would you do that? No. And I'm like, look, Richie, his name was Richie. I'm like, this is gonna hurt for like, I'm gonna be thinking about. Like I already regret doing this, and I'm going to be thinking about the fact that I did this for months now. Like this is horrible. I hate that I've done this, but I needed to in order to prove the point to you. Like you're dealing with the fact that you can't watch a show. I've just broken my favorite mug. Let's go through this experience of loss together and understand that all emotional experiences, they're temporary, and that these things go away, and it's all going to be fine. And you'll find a new mug or a new show or a new thing to get attached to, or a new girlfriend even, and you'll get to the point where this is just becomes a distant memory. And it's like, even though I'm really attached to this thing, let's go through this experience. And then for years I was using like shitty IKEA mugs and things like this, just whatever the biggest mug I could find, and it was never the same. It was never, I mean, maybe that fucks up my point, but it was never the same as this mug. And I did get attached to other mugs, but not in the same way. And then I was in Target in New York last year, and I saw this sitting on the shelf, and I'm like, God has delivered my mug to me again. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, maybe that was a shit story. I'm just going to move on and go to the next question. From my personal experience and reflection, I've noticed that many of the world's problems seem to stem from older generations, particularly boomers and some millennials. Millennials are older generations? Fuck, man. I think I'm a millennial. I was born in 97. Does that make me a millennial? In my previous jobs, the most challenging colleagues were often older individuals, especially women from these generations. However, we believe that the younger generations, particularly younger men, have the potential to create a better world. I am considering forming a community or even a cult focused on this belief, where we work together to shape a better future as the older generations fade away. What's your opinion on this idea? How can I effectively pursue this vision? And what advice would you offer to ensure it is constructive and inclusive? What a wild question. Okay, many of the world's problems seem to stem from older generations. Maybe. I think that every young, like, I think there's always going to be a disconnect as things change, and I think that every generation as they get older feels like the younger generations are causing problems, and then every younger generation feels like the older are causing problems, and there's some truth to that, and there's some nonsense to it as well. Like there's studies that suggest that like the boomers, the baby boomers, the people that are in the like 80s and 90s or whatever now, ingested a hell of a lot of lead when they were younger, and so it's correlated with like lacking empathy and being more prone to Karen-like behavior and stuff, and just not giving a shit about anything and being a miserly grumpy cunt. And I think that is a thing to some extent. I also think that as you get older, if you've not lived the life that you want to live, you can grow resentful and start to not care about things. And I also do know that, like in the UK, for example, a lot of problems are caused by older generations, like wanting to build new houses and having the council shoot it down because a small minority of wealthy older people don't want the new houses built, which then leads to a housing crisis and all sorts of other problems. And then on the flip side, like the older generations can look at the younger ones and go, oh, these kids on their phones all the time and connections being ruined and the world's becoming in a worse state because people are more apathetic and they're not really fighting for anything anymore. And it's like, there's merit to the argument on both sides. And I think it's less about, I don't like to get into any kind of mindset where it's us versus them, or thinking in a divisive way, like young versus old, right versus left, up versus down, pink versus blue, men versus women. All of that, you know, Christians versus Muslims. I think that this is all not necessarily by design, but I think it's all things that keep people from focusing on the real problems and keep people from doing, as you're saying, as forming communities. And so you're talking about forming a community of younger people and believing that the world's problems stem from older people. So you're going to form a group of younger people, and then you're asking me how to make it inclusive. Whilst it's like the group's nature in and of itself is non-inclusive, because you're excluding certain elements of society because you believe that they're causing the problems. I think that in and of itself is a problem. Like we need to collaborate as people, everybody, young, old, rich, poor, everybody needs to collaborate in order to make things happen. And I think you can look at the world in two different ways. I think you can look at it as a competitive environment, or I think you can look at it as a collaborative environment. And I think there's space for both. And I think there is time for both. Like, you know, I'm the kind of person that when, you know, I believe that people should have the right to own guns and defend their land and defend their personal autonomy with violence and all of the, or with force against violence and all of this stuff. But at the same time, I don't think that that's a good thing. Like competition exists in nature, but I think it is part of the human capacity to collaborate with people. And I think that things always end up better when you do. And can you always change people's minds? No. But you can certainly try to lead by example and to try to shape the world into the way that you want it to be, with not apathetic. And like when I say peaceful, people think like peaceful protest, peaceful thing. There are times where force is necessary, especially when rights are being violated. But I don't know. Do you understand what I'm getting at here? I think it is best to come at things with an approach of inclusivity and collaboration and trying to understand people and bridge gaps rather than creating further divisiveness, because the world's divided enough already. So if you wanted to form a community, you're saying I want to form a community or cult based on the belief that the world's problems stem from older generations, and what advice would you offer to ensure it's constructive and inclusive? You can't form that if you want it to be constructive and inclusive, I don't think. And the thing is, well, I think fixing the world's problems really, at the end of the day, comes down to education and community. If people have a strong community where there are social bonds and a positively enforced way of doing things, and we talked last week about how, especially in smaller communities and as communities become more like tight-knit and the connections between people become stronger, the amount of social pressure on the individual is far higher. Like there are tribes where they'll shave their heads and wear, this is the example I used last week, they'll shave their heads and wear like bells and shit on their cocks, and that's bizarre to people outside the tribe. If you're in the tribe, that's just what people do, you know, like it's that kind of social pressure makes things normal because it's what everybody's doing. And so I think one of the main problems, and you're playing into that problem by having this belief, is that people are divided and it's us versus them and old versus young and right versus left, and everybody's angry at everybody else and blaming everybody else for the problems. And I think the real thing comes down to education. If we can come together and maybe it's possible, maybe it's not, but this is my utopian perspective on things. People die, people get old, things end, and I don't think you necessarily need to tear down the system as much as you do need to educate the younger people coming in. Like I think most of the world's problems are caused by a lack of good education and like strong moral fabric within society. Because as younger people come up, if people are raised into a society where things are healthy and positive and they're taught like how to deal with their emotions and communicate and collaborate with other people, it's like they're not interested in going and working for Raytheon and creating missiles that blow up children in Syria. You know, you know, if these older people had grown up in a different time and had a different perspective, perhaps they wouldn't be so insular and people wouldn't be fighting each other and they wouldn't be causing all the problems that you think they're causing. And so rather than trying to fight that and end those people, understand that the only constant in life is change and that things are constantly changing and evolving. So if you want to change things positively, make sure that the new stuff that's coming in is better. And you are sort of talking about that. You're like, how do I form a community of younger people? But the problem with it is that you're still viewing it in an adversarial sort of way. Like, these people are the problem, and so we're going to fight it. And I just don't think that works. You want to weigh in on that at all, Anton? You got anything to say?
That was a difficult question, but I fully agree with every word you said.
It's complicated, yeah.
Yes.
I think I closed and deleted the wrong ticket here, because the questions come in as ticket, and after I answer them, I close and delete them. And I think there was one here that I closed by accident, so I'm going to try and find it. Unless it was just an old question, I don't know. No, I think I got them all. You got any questions you want? We got like 10-15 minutes left.
Yeah. What would your advice be for people who decide to go into sort of self-development on how to deal with failure? Because in my progress, like, I've been facing failure so much, and it's a part of everyone who's gonna take this journey on. So I was wondering, what would your advice be for them? Yeah.
So I just. And I think this is why you're asking this question. It's maybe quite astute. One of the most recent posts I put out is called "Failure is a Good Thing." And again, that's in the behavioral forum. I give all of this stuff away from free. It's discord.gg/self-improvement, or there's a link in the description if that link ever changes. It's called "Failure is a Good Thing." And I laid it out in 3 sections. I think they were called perspective, and I think it was 2 sections, perspective and opportunity. So the first point is that everything comes down to perspective, and so you like people are going to fail in life, and bad things are going to happen, and there's always going to be setbacks, and there's always going to be things that don't work out as you want them to, or actively work against you, and all of that, and that's just a normal part of life that can't really be avoided, especially if you are someone that is striving for success, because you're going to end up taking more risks and trying more things. Like with social and dating matters, for example, it's like if you want a good social life and lots of dates, you're going to have to get rejected hundreds, if not thousands, of times, and that's fine. It's part of the process, and I really think a lot of it just comes down to the perspective that you have, which deems the quality of your life and the amount to which the heights to which you will achieve, basically. Because if you view failure as something to be avoided, and you view it as something that is a negative thing, and something that it means there's something wrong with you, or it means that you did bad, you're going to be more averse to taking risks. You're going to be more averse to actually taking positive action. You're going to feel less motivated and all this stuff. Whereas if you view failure as something that is a healthy and necessary consequence of just trying things, not only are you more inclined to take action, you are more inclined to learn from your failures. So like if you just view them as a negative thing, you might want to avoid thinking about it or whatever. If you view it as a positive thing, and something bad happens or some failure happens, whatever, you can have this like every cloud has a silver lining mentality and learn from it as a result. Like taking social matters, for example, and social matters are a good example of a non-linear process. And I talked about this in another post, which I believe is called process over outcome. And that's about focusing on the process of doing things rather than any specific outcome, especially in things that are non-linear. So in social matters are non-linear. The amount of effort that you put in is not directly correlated in real time to the results that you get. I mean, obviously, the more effort you put in, the more likely you are to get the results that you want. And again, when it comes to social matters and things, and that's my speciality, I'm a coach in these things, I guarantee results. If you follow the things that I'm telling you, you will get the things that I tell you you're going to get. But you can't tell exactly when that's going to happen. Like you could go out and talk to 5 people, and one of them's like, yeah, let's go out, let's have a date, whatever. And then the other guy's like, yeah, let's be friends, this is great. Or you could go out and talk to 100 and that doesn't happen. It's sort of like flipping a coin. If you flip a coin 100 times, right? Or sorry, if you flip a coin like 10,000 times, it's going to average out about 50-50. If you flip it 10 times and then put it down and then do that once every day, your results are going to vary massively from day to day. And so that's a non-linear process. Linear processes are more like working out, where it's like if you lift a little bit heavier every week, you will grow in accordance to that, and it has diminishing returns over time, but it's more linear. It's like the more that I am lifting, the stronger that I am getting. It's 1-to-1. What the fuck were we talking about? Oh yeah, failure. And so if especially when you're doing non-linear things, if you view failure as a setback, it can really hold you back, because it's like, oh well, I've gone out and talked to, with social matters, I've gone out and talked to 50 people, and not a single one of them has been, I mean, they're mostly going to be friendly, but it's like I didn't get a date, I didn't get a friend, I didn't get whatever. Oh, this failure must mean that I'm doing something wrong. Whereas instead, you view it as progress anyway, and you're tracking your progress in a different way. This sort of ties in with the process over outcome. If you're tracking your progress as, how am I doing? Am I getting less nervous? Am I taking more action? Am I talking to more people? If you view that as your metric, these things stop being failures and they start just being part of the process. So that's the first part. It's the perspective part. And then the other thing is opportunity, which is kind of a branch of the perspective. So I'm just gonna read. I'm just gonna read from the post. Let's say you fail at a new habit you're trying to form. You've been keeping it up for the past 2 weeks, but now you've faced a setback and fallen off for a day. One of two things might happen depending on your perspective. You treat it as horrible, tell yourself that I think I already talked about this. I think it all comes down to perspective, basically. And the second bit is basically going over a specific example where if you are, like say for example, you're trying to form a habit, and you say every day you're trying to meditate, and you meditate for 10 days and you're like, I'm going to do it for 30 days or I'm a failure and all of this stuff. And then you slip up one day. If you treat failure as a big thing, it's like New Year's resolutions. People that have their New Year's resolutions and they break them by the end of January because they slip up for 1 or 2 days. And then they're like, oh, well, I guess the whole thing's fucked, right? And they take that perspective to failure. Whereas if you go, this is fine, slipping up is part of the process. It takes a while to change my habits. I understand that it's going to be a difficult process. I'm going to have setbacks. Not only does it make it easier to continue it, and this also ties in with another post that I wrote about habit forming, you can fail consciously. So if you fail and you are fully aware of that failure and you go, I failed and this is how and this is why, and you don't try to avoid it, it actually helps reinforce the new behavior, because you're making it a conscious thing. You're going, I am consciously failing. I understand that I did this. Today is an off day. I'm going to get back on the horse tomorrow. And you're not avoiding it, and you're not creating negativity within yourself, because you view it as a healthy part of the process. So failure, I think, especially when it comes to processes and habit forming and all these things, you should always try and treat it as something that is healthy and normal, because it just helps you progress. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
I love how you touched on the, yes, it did, on the non-linear progress from like social development, because this is so crucial. Also,
so
like,
good posts on the matter would be failure is a good thing, which is in the behavior. I think these are all in the behavioral forum. Failure is a good thing, process over outcome, and then the changing your habits posts. So there's 3 posts in the behavioral forum that talk about everything I've just talked about. Sorry, Anton, on you go.
Oh, I was saying that I remember during the calls that you always, that you were never like, you always encouraged, okay, but did you take the action? You didn't care about the result. And that was very important for me, because the results will come. It's like, it's just a numbers game, you know. It's about compatibility and being authentic, and then it will come. But if you focus on the outcome all the time, you're losing.
Yeah, and that goes back to what I said in the process over outcome post. It's the, if you are measuring your progress based on the results that you are getting, especially if they're lofty results. Like, say you have a long-term goal and you make your way of, like, you make that your goal. Like, it's good to have long-term goals, but you make that your focus, I should say. If it's a long-term goal, like say you want to gain 20 pounds in the gym or whatever, that can take years. And so if that's your long-term goal, it can be very difficult for you to feel motivated in the interim, because you're looking at yourself and you're comparing yourself to where you are. And even if you are making little bits of progress, you're like, oh, well, I made 1% progress this week, and so this is going to take me this long. And then it becomes a demotivating thing. Whereas if instead you track your progress and you reward yourself based on the process rather than the outcome, and we can talk about linear and non-linear. So linear being in the gym. So if you have a long-term goal to gain 20 pounds or whatever, if you instead make your form of measurement on how heavy is the weight that I'm lifting, and is that increasing week over week, or am I getting the right amount of calories, am I getting this, have I gained weight, have I lost weight, that is a far more immediate thing that you can track. And when it comes to non-linear things like the social stuff, tracking the long-term goal is just completely not going to work, because you don't know when that thing's going to come. But you do know that if you take the action over time, it will come, right? So if you instead focus on, like I talked about, rather than, you know, did I get a girlfriend? Have I got numbers? Have I this? Have I that? And also focusing on these things when you're in these interactions actually fucks up the interactions, because it prevents you from being present with people, and it ruins the thing that we've talked about a lot, which is not trying to make people like you and not going for a specific result with people, but just looking for compatibility and looking for connection. So if you have a goal in mind, it fucks up your ability to actually do those things effectively, and you start putting people off and maybe taking action that you shouldn't be taking because you're trying to get a specific result. Whereas if instead you focus on, did I take more action than yesterday? Did I felt the same amount of fear, but did I conquer it faster? Like, you know, did I take an extra, even if you don't take any action that day, you're like, did I take an extra step? Good, that's progress. You know, did I take an extra step? Did I speak to an extra person? If you're just a little bit better than the day before, good, you've made progress. And that's the best way to track progress long term. And it also feeds back into that like reward mechanism where you feel like you've accomplished something. Whereas if you just have a lofty end goal in sight, you know, you're best tracking the incremental steps rather than, like, have a long-term goal, great, but track the incremental steps. Because, you know, if you want to be great in social situations, you're gonna have to learn to love talking to people and going out and meeting people. If you want to get a big muscular body, you're going to love having to go to the gym. If you want to be healthy and eat well, you have to love being healthy and eating well. And that's all about process. There's another aspect. It's like the results are great, but most things in life that are good not only require a lot of work to get there, but they also require maintenance. And so if you don't enjoy the process and focus on the process and reward yourself for the process, you're never going to achieve those things. And that goes back into identity as well. Like it's all about who you are and what you believe. If you believe that you don't want to do those things, well, then you're never going to be that person. You're never going to be healthy and strong and attractive and have dates and friends and all of this stuff unless you believe that you are someone who works out consistently and someone that speaks to people consistently and someone that goes and talks to women and all of that stuff. Like that needs to be part of your identity and who you are, and it's all about the process.
Yeah. Exactly. And I would even say, like, if you focus on the outcome, that's maybe like where a lot of PUA guys come in, like, because they want to convince somebody to like them, and that's so wrong in many ways. And that's when you get
100%.
like
I mean,
inauthentic
most dating
behavior
advice, most dating advice it revolves around how do I convince people to like me. Basically, most modern dating advice is that it's how do I pretend to be someone that I'm not and convince people to like me and give me what I want, which is the wrong way to go about it. The right way to go about it is how can I be comfortable with myself and create like a authentic, good personality that people are attracted to, and then go out and find people that are compatible with me, who I can connect with. And that's the process that we go through. And if you want to be a part of that process, it's discord.gg/self-improvement. There's different forums, behavioral, emotional, social, and there's a bunch of free posts in those forums that you can go and read, and you can do all of this yourself. And if you want coaching, you can reach out and DM. You can get specific coaching. You can join the weekly coaching calls. You can get private one-on-one stuff. You can take a boot camp, all of that good shit. And I feel like that's probably a good place to wrap up. I have been Ben Campbell. I've been joined by my friend and co-host Anton Toya. This has been the Off the Cuff live show. Thank you for your questions. If you want to submit questions, again, it's discord.gg/self-improvement, or the link down in the description. And there is a channel called under live show called submissions, and you can either submit a question or ask to call into the show. And I'd actually like people to start calling in. I think that would be cool. We can get some people live in the show. Good. And we'll be back next week at 5 p.m. Sofia time. And I'm going to give it a few seconds before ending the stream so that I don't get cut off.